And a good day to you, Explorer Nation. John Lynskey here, episode 4 of season 4, Looking Back with Lynskey. Honored today to be sitting next to the best football coach in the state of Florida. Explorers are 5-0 at the halfway point of this season, won some big games. Everybody knows who this is here. Coach of the Year, state championship coach, and a dear friend. I don't know if that's good or bad, but anyway, the one and only Coach Dave Dunn. Coach Dunn, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, John. Great to be here.
It's my pleasure. We've got a beautiful photo of the skyline of Miami behind us.
Yes.
Just so everybody knows, Coach Dunn wanted to do this live from Bird Bowl today, but the inclement weather prevented that, and his office is not fit for human habitation. So we're over here in the Moss building, and you know, it's great to be here with you despite the bad weather.
Bird Bowl would have been nice because those are my people.
They are. The same barflies have been there since 1975. Yes, and they are your people. But on a serious note, Coach Dunn, halfway through the season, 5-0, one of the tougher schedules the Explorers have played in years. What's your halfway point evaluation of this team?
You know, we're excited to be where we're at. We're excited to be undefeated at this point. And we had a pretty we played a state champion from Georgia in week 1. Kind of a little bit of a depleted Killian team, I would say, in week 2. But then we played Tampa Jesuit, and they had the longest winning streak in the state of Florida. Followed that with our arch rival Palmetto, and then followed that with a always tough and eager Northwestern team up at Travis Powell. So that was a pretty good stretch to start the season. So it wasn't perfect. Did a lot of things wrong, but in each game we found a way to win. In fact, the last 3 games we came from behind at the half each game. So I think our men showed some resilience there, which is impressive, and we got to use that and use it as impetus toward a great finish here.
You know, I think the schedule you played can only make you better as long as you stay healthy. And I mean, you played some great programs, as you just said. Each one totally different. You went from Palmetto to Northwestern on a short week, up at Traz. What has the focus of this team been like? Every team's different year to year, as we know. What has the focus of the team been like this year? You pleased?
Yeah, I would say that we're a more mature football team than we were last year. You know, it's the heart of any football team are the offensive and defensive lines, and we returned a lot of guys on both lines from last year. So that group right there, those 2 groups have really kind of set the tone for us. You know, we're kind of a program that's built from the inside out, and we just have a lot of older guys there, so they kind of know what needs to get done, and they do a great job of handling their business.
You know, this is your 4th year as head coach, so this truly now is your program. You know, it takes a while to establish an identity and solidify things. How would you define a Dave Dunn program?
You know, I'd like to think that we're a well-prepared team. We're a team that's going to outwork you. We're not always going to be able to out-athlete you, but, you know, I think we always want to execute all 3 phases of the game at a really high level. And, you know, we talk about this all the time every week is let's give the other team an opportunity to lose the game. And we're not going to turn the ball over. We're going to limit our penalties. We're going to be really good in the kicking game. And we feel that we stress those 3 things every week, that no matter what, it's going to be at the very least a close game, which it has been. We've been within a score at halftime of each game, and we've won all the games except for the most recent Northwestern game by double digits.
You know, you raised a point a little while ago. You've been behind at halftime. And yet have emerged victorious in some cases, basically blowouts, except for Northwestern, of course. And what is the key to making great halftime adjustments? Because obviously you're doing something right.
Well, we have really good assistant coaches. You know, it starts with that. So, you know, and we've worked together for a while now, and you know, between the offensive and defensive staffs, I think there's a great familiarity there, you know, amongst ourselves. And so we kind of know, same thing, we have a set way we do things at halftime, and we kind of go over everything that worked, everything that didn't work. And then everybody has input of, okay, listen, I think this is going to work in the second half. And then on defense, it's Al's job, Coach Trujillo's job to make his adjustments with his guys, and on offense, it's mine. And then on special teams, it's Coach Lindforce. And I think we've done a really good job of, okay, we've been doing the same stuff for a while that we know how to fix it. And I think that's important. And when something isn't working, we can say, okay, we know that this is what we have to go to. And with older guys and more mature guys, that's a little bit easier. And like last year, that would have been a little tougher for us to do.
The confidence level of the team, watching them, even when you're behind, there doesn't seem to be a sense of panic. Where is that confidence developed? Do you think it's because, as you said, they are experienced, or is it the culture of the program, combination thereof? What do you think?
I think it starts with us as coaches. We never, at halftime, we're not a rah-rah, let's play harder in the second half. We're more of okay, this is where our issues are. We're going to do this to fix it. So I think we're much more technical. So we kind of take, at least at halftime, the emotional aspect out of it. And we're like, technically, this is what we are strategically. This is what we need to do better, change in the second half. And I think we do that on both sides of the ball. So it kind of sets I would say, more of a business-like tone at halftime with our guys. Okay. And I think that permeates throughout the team. And if they see the coaches handle it that way, then they're going to handle it that way. If we just scream and yell at them at halftime, I mean, there's times where emotions are going to kind of get the best in you, and you're going to probably raise your voice a little bit and kind of get after them. But for the most part, that might be the very first minute or two at halftime. But when we leave at half, we have a very specific game plan on both sides of the ball, what we need to do to execute to win the football game. And so far, we've done it.
You've also out-conditioned people, so you have to be pleased with what great shape your kids are in, particularly so early in the season. When the heat, I mean, it's been obviously hot. It's hot for everybody, but we seem, for whatever reason, to out-condition people. And when when you've still got some energy, you play just that much better than a guy who's tired.
Yeah, it's all credit to Coach Swayze, our strength coach. He's done a great job in the off season. This summer with our conditioning, it was probably a little bit more intense than it has been in the past. And it's not that we didn't work hard in the past, but I think this year we kind of took it up a notch. And all the coaches are there every day too, so they're bought into it. So it's we know that's if you're going to win games with there's times we'll play teams that probably have a little bit more, I should say, a larger number of athletes than we have. Is that the deciding factor? Very well could be come down to physical conditioning, especially in the fourth quarter. And so we're going to hang our hat on that.
If I was to ask you, you've been coaching for a very, very long time.
I'm old.
Yes, aren't we all? Some are older than others. What is one thing you would still like to improve on as a coach?
It's a good question. I think with me, it's probably there's always something that we practice during the week that we don't get to, and either have the foresight that we don't install that during the week because we don't run it, or have the I would say the ability to follow through on my initial plans and run it. And there's always something. No one's ever called a perfect game on either side of the ball, but there's usually something kind of tweak we'll put in there, and we just don't run it. And sometimes it's intentional. Sometimes I'm like, I just didn't get to it. It's probably, it's probably things like that. It's never a big thing. It's probably something small like that. I'm like, I really like this play. We should have called it. I really felt I liked it on Tuesday. I liked it on Thursday. Why did I not call it on Friday night? And, I'm pretty hard on myself the day after when I start watching the film and second guess. And I just, I don't know what it is. It's a mental hurdle, or I got to be able to, push through that and follow through with my plans. And I think Coach Trujillo said the same thing. Like, we should have probably done more of this. Now, usually it's a small thing. The last thing you want to do is leave a game and saying, we should have covered this in grave detail and didn't, and it cost us the game. Like gotcha. That's the conversation you don't want to have with yourself and with the team. And so far this year we have not.
Your first time around when we coached together, you were a defensive guy.
Yeah.
Now you're an offensive guy. We've talked about this in the past. Do you still feel any temptation to get involved defensively at all, or do you just leave it to Coach Trujillo.
I leave it to Coach Trujillo. I'll give him, general advice probably, and I'll watch the other team's offense, and I'll just kind of every once in a while I'll say, hey, listen, having coached both sides, this is what hurts that offensive attack, or this is, but it's usually general stuff that's, I will never interrupt a coach during the game and say, we need to run this play, or we need to do this, because then you're just micromanaging, and I don't want to be that. And I think, believe it or not, the fact that I call the plays on offense, I'm so focused that way, it prevents me from having the urge to probably get involved on defense, which is good. It's good trust me, it's good for everybody involved. But it's usually with Coach Trujillo, it'll be a general advice thing and said, hey, listen, I see they do a lot of 10 personnel, and they run quick game and some RPOs, and this is what's given us problems in the past. It's more ideas than actual, hey, directives.
I know obviously a lot of people watch the players on the field, but I think someone who's had an opportunity to watch you coach, you just mentioned play calling. You seem to have a definite sequence in mind, and it is not really off your call sheet.
No.
So tell us, if you can. I know it's a hard question.
Yeah.
How does your mind work? Is it predetermined, or does something just instinctively after all these years tell you, no, we got to do this? Because I will say this: you're incredibly decisive about what you're going to call, and it comes pretty fast.
My dad used to often ask that question when I was an adolescent. How does your mind work? And it's been a question that's been asked by several human beings throughout the last 56 years, and no one's ever come up with a real good answer. I'm definitely I call the game by feel. Like okay. I'll watch film during the week, and I'll say, all right, I know these things will be really, really good, and probably about 75 to 80% of those will hold true on Friday, but something will happen on Friday that will make me change course. And it could be an injury on the defense, a change in coverage on the defense, a change in front of the defense, an injury for us. So things like that. And the game will always, at one point, usually head into a little bit of a different direction than you think it's going to during the week. And you just got to be able to adapt at that point. And yeah, I'm definitely feel like, for me, the play calls are ideas, and I'll list not only down and distance stuff, but I'll have 20 plays I want to run in the game. And they're not even really, they're usually, I list them as openers, but I don't call them in that order. I just put the ones down I like, because also I feel that at that time, this is one I want to call. And usually I get through, out of those 20, I'd say I probably call 15 a game. Okay. That's what I'm saying. It's those other 5 that I'm like, sometimes there was a definite reason of why I did not get to one of those 5 that I didn't call. Other times I'm like, I should have called that play.
Okay. One thing I've also noticed when you were running the defense, you talk to defensive players a lot different than you talk to your quarterback. And you told me some years ago, you have a written rule with yourself. You do not yell at the quarterback during the game. Why is that? Or try not to anyway. Try not to.
If you asked Alberto, he would wholeheartedly disagree with that. I just think you need those guys in the right frame of mind. I would say I talk to them in stern tone, probably the best way to put it. But you want those guys always. I always feel that the best quarterbacks are the ones that are kind of like this. They can take a good play and flush it, and take a bad play and flush it and move on. And they're trying to process that themselves. If they get heat from me, it doesn't always. There's times I have to do it, but more often than not, I'll just say, hey, listen, this is what you did wrong. This is what we got to do to fix it. And sometimes that comes out with higher volume than other times.
Well, it's also personalities. You know a kid you can yell at, and it'll motivate him. You also know if you yell at a certain kid, it's going to shut him down.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the history of this school. I think we go all the way back to the early 60s to the Ellison brothers, were the infamous Ellison brothers, Hall of Famers, former inmates, wide variety, the Ellison brothers. To have brothers start back-to-back at quarterback is quite something. So what's it like been, and nobody likes to compare brothers.
Yeah.
Brothers don't like to be compared to one another. But how's it been going from Fernando to Alberto Mendoza?
They're completely different, and I'll say this: both great young men. Come from excuse me, a great family.
Yeah.
Their father, Fernando Mendoza, was an offensive lineman here.
He could play
at Columbus, and so they're Columbus guys through and through. So their love for the program, the things they have in common, they have unbelievable work ethic. I mean, those guys are true gym rats, great work ethic. They're different. Fernando was a bigger, stronger, had a probably a little. Alberto's got a very good arm. Fernando had a cannon. Alberto's a better runner and moves around in the pocket better. And I think one thing that probably helped Alberto a little bit was sitting behind his brother for a year and learning the offense that way, where Fernando was kind of thrown right into it a little bit. He wasn't even going to play one game. He ended up coming off the bench. His first pass he threw in his career was for a touchdown.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So he was kind of thrown in.
Yeah.
I would say that the difference between the two is that Fernando was definitely thrown in more toward the deep end than Alberto was. So, but I'll say this: they're both great young men. They're, like I said, unbelievable competitors, both of them. They're different in probably how they play the game. I would say this: Alberto, having sat near me and watched me call plays for a whole season, probably good, bad, or indifferent, understands how I think a little bit more than Fernando did. Because Fernando was always on the field. Yeah. And so I think that that's really helped Alberto.
So Alberto got a little on the job training, so to speak.
Yeah.
He was an apprentice basically.
Yep.
Your practice schedule. I guarantee you said this earlier. We've got tropical storm conditions here in Miami today. You're probably the only team on the field in Dade County today. It's 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that's crazy, but at the same time, explain the advantages of practicing so early in the morning. What that does for the student athletes. Emphasis on student athletes there.
First and foremost, it gets them up early.
Yes.
They're not going to be late to school. They're awake. I just always tell them it's we'll usually do some kind of full contact drill early in practice, and it's like a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So it's
a jolt. Yeah.
Yes. And it's not as hot, so it's not as taxing on the body. The players like it. In fact, they wanted to practice every morning this week. The reason why we didn't yesterday was mainly because we had some fundamental issues in the game on Friday night. We just did not block and tackle as well as we had in the past. So I wanted to literally commit a full afternoon practice to working on blocking and tackling, and that couldn't be done in the morning. So that's otherwise I probably would have gone all day, because last week we ran into a bunch of weather issues with lightning, and so practice got shortened. And so what do you take out? You take out the individual skill development stuff, which I think is paramount to the improvement of each and every player. And we didn't block and tackle as much in individual last week. And therefore, to me, we are so process. Myself and Coach Trujillo were talking about this. We're so process oriented as a staff and as a team that when we skipped those things last week, we didn't think it was a big deal. And on Friday night, it reared its ugly head, and it was a big deal. That being said, getting back to the morning practices, and then the kids even say the hardest part of their day physically is out. Now all I can do is concentrate on school. So I think it has a lot of benefits. One, it's not as hot. They're up early. They're gonna get moving right off the bat when they get out of bed. They're awake, and they're all going to be here for a class.
Yeah, it guarantees attendance.
Yeah.
We alluded earlier in the broadcast. This is your fourth year, and now it's truly your program. The kids now seem to buy into accountability. And that is something that I've noticed. You preach accountability, and not just on the field, off the field as well. And I think it's a good lesson at Ameris School for, again, student athletes to understand accountability. And you are incredibly consistent. And good or bad, you're incredibly consistent. And I do think at the end of the day, people say kids have changed. Well, I know everybody appreciates consistency.
Yeah. I've always, I fearlessly be myself is probably the best way to say it. I know it didn't come out correct, but like I am who I am, and I'm not going to change, and I don't shy away from that. And I think that discipline is something that must be instilled in young people today. And I tell them all the time, I go, if you want to go play college football, my job is to get you ready for college football. I was a college coach for over 20 years, so I know how the programs are going to be run there and what's going to be asked of them. And we try to ask the same things of our players here at Columbus High School. And secondly, even if they're not, any kind of teamwork and discipline lessons that they can learn while they're here at Columbus will also help them in their professional lives once they graduate college.
We all have either direct personal mentors or somebody we grew up watching that we borrow from, that we strive to be. Who were some of the more important people in your life, either directly or indirectly, that helped make you the coach that you've become?
My mom and dad first come to my dad had unbelievable work ethic, organizational skills, and just drive. I've never seen a guy work harder in my life. I mean, he worked 6 days a week his entire life. And even the day he retired, he worked a half day on a Saturday. I was coaching at Lehigh, and he was working in Newark, New Jersey. He retired at noon and then drove to the game and then drove to North Carolina to retire. So
Jeez.
that's my dad in a nutshell, rest his soul. And then I think with my mom, it's trying to give me a compassion side. My dad had zero compassion and strong work ethic and great organizational skills. My mom had horrible organizational skills and unbelievable compassion. And I am the absolute 50-50 mix thing. Some people don't see it on the field, but the people that really know me is I'm a very giving, compassionate person off the field. And really, really organized on the field. My professional life in terms of practice, and you've worked for me before, so I'm amazingly organized when it comes to practice and attention to detail and time. And I'm surprisingly not when it comes off the field. So I'm really a different cat off the field than I am on the field. I would say.
And thank God you're not the way on the field that you are off the field, or we'd be 0-5 right now.
Yeah,
5-0.
The other way around too. I told people that if I was this, someone goes, "How come you never lose your temper? You don't, ever use bad language or anything when you're at home or off the field?" They go, "If I had acted that way all the time," I go, "somebody would kill me."
Yeah.
We would, if I acted how I did on the field as I do off the field, we wouldn't win a game. I'm too nice.
Correct.
And I'm not organized.
Yeah.
And then if I acted off the field the way I do with practice, I would not make it a day in anybody's house, especially mine.
Oh, you'd be arrested as well.
Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah.
How about coaching mentors? Be it high school, college, professional guys. Who are some of the people that all great coaches, musicians, athletes, whatever, they steal from other people. Teachers steal from other, people that came before them. Who did you steal from?
Joe Angelo, my high school coach, is one of the best coaches ever. He still lives in Naples, and I love him to death, and I want to get him to come to a game. I've never had a guy make football more enjoyable in my entire life, but also make us work hard at the same time. I remember there was a game we had to win to get to the state championship game on Thanksgiving in the mud. Back in the 80s. And it's the greatest comeback probably I've ever been. We're down 36 with 6 minutes to go in the game. We win the game 36-30. And the other team had the ball too. But I remember we're trying to tie the game at 30 all. We go for 2, and the other team calls timeout. Coach comes in the huddle. He goes, "Hey, we having fun yet?" And just kind of made us relax. But he's the reason why I probably got into coaching and love it so much. Working for Howard Snellenberger was unbelievable. Okay. And I learned how to become a college coach at that point. I learned how to organize an offense from him, and a lot to Coach Snellenberger. I'm not saying he gave me my, he hired me at FAU from when I was living down here, and a lot of the success I've had in my career can be attributed to him. And then I don't know if I consider mentors, but Coach Mirabal and Coach Cristobal have always been sounding boards for me in terms of, if I have a football question, 90% of the time, if it's about organizational stuff, I can go to Coach Cristobal. If it's about offensive stuff or offensive line play specifically, Coach Mirabal, I can call him. We laugh. We used to talk during the season more than we did our family. And still do probably at times. Yeah. And then I've had defensive mentors as well. Mark Harriman was my first boss at Harvard University. He was our defense coordinator on one of the best teams that Harvard ever had. I owe a ton to him, and he taught me about how to make a real tough defense, and I was able to bring that down here the first time. And I think we had a real tough defensive mentality as a team. Having Lane Jackson didn't help. I mean, didn't hurt.
It did not hurt.
Did not hurt.
It did not hurt.
But those are just some of the guys that come to mind that I really learned a lot from.
You know, you have had success at both levels, worked a lot of different places. So what are the best and worst things about coaching in college and the best and worst things about coaching in high school?
It comes down to two things. Coaching in college, the pressure is immense, and the recruiting can really take a toll on you and your family. Coaching in high school, I hate to say to the parents, most of them have unrealistic expectations to how and where their son should play. And when you and I played, nobody ever talked to. Did anybody ever? Do your parents ever meet with Coach Lavelle?
Hello, goodbye.
Yeah. And now,
about it. Yeah.
We're 5-0, and I get about 3 emails a week telling me how bad of a coach I am. So it's just different. It's something you just got to get used to, and I take it with a grain of salt. I look at it this way: I'm going to have, we have a job here at Columbus High School, which is, it's got some notoriety to it, especially down here in South Florida. And we're, if you're attracting critics, that means you're probably doing something right. And I look at it this way. If you're winning, you don't need the critics. And if you're losing, they can't help you anyway. And so I take all that stuff with a grain of salt.
That's really good. That is really good. I agree with that. Who are some of your favorite players growing up?
Favorite players? I was a huge Jim Burt fan for the New York Giants.
Of course you were.
So I'm a big New York Giants fan. I tell you the two, he was when I got to college because I didn't play him, but Mark Bavaro to me, I was a tight end in high school.
Yeah, okay.
And Mark Bavaro personified, to this day, he personifies toughness to me. I mean, you look at him, you go, that's a tough guy. And there was even the thing where they caught Parcells, who's a tough guy, saying, he goes, that Bavaro, you don't know what he's thinking. I wouldn't want to fight that guy. And I was a huge Bavaro fan and a huge Jim Burt fan growing up just north of New York City and spending my formative years there. I was always a Giants fan, and those are two of my all-time favorites.
That makes perfect sense. We've had some tough kids here at Columbus, and how gratifying is it to you to see these guys go on and succeed? Yeah,
it's great. I tell you, just watching our guys, like watching Henry play on Saturday in Miami, and he got dinged up a little bit there in the second half, and my heart sunk. It's just watching our guys go on to the next level, and not only watching them have success at the next level. Doobie at Florida, Andre Lamas at FAU, Max Villar at Bryant. There's a lot of great ones that have played here. Courtney Holmes at FAU. Courtney's one of my all-time favorite guys. Yeah. Ken Moore's at Western Carolina. Cornelius is at UMass. Watching those guys have
Elijah,
success.
Jabari,
Elijah and Jabari, and Ryan is hurt right now. Guys like that. Yeah, even Sebastian Larac, who's on the roster at FIU. We have a lot. The thing that I enjoy the best is watching our guys come back to our games and give it their all, cheering for us. And we score the go-ahead touchdown against Northwestern. And if you watched him film on the sideline, Ryan Rodriguez is fist pumping it because we ran the ball and he's all fired up. Jabari and Elijah are high-fiving, and they're with some Northwestern buddies from the University of Miami. And Jabari goes right up and with his hands up like this for a touchdown into one of the faces of the Northwestern guys. To me, that was priceless. It's things like that. And watching our guys come back that have had success and watching them want us to have success in our program, you can't put a price tag on that. It's an unbelievable feeling.
I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. And I will say, you just mentioned it a minute ago, what Parcells said about Bavaro. That's how I always felt about Henry Parrish. He might have played offense, but Henry was a defensive mentality type player. He was the one kid in school that no one should have even thought about messing with.
Yeah. And he I'm not saying he was a fighter, but he just kind of had that stare on his face all the time. And we used to have to tell him, like, he will initiate contact way before he ever avoids it. And I kind of kept trying to tell him, I go, your career lasts a lot longer every once in a while if you run out of bounds. It's just not in his DNA.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not in his DNA. So it's exciting to watch him have success, and hopefully he can get healthy for the North Carolina game here in about a week and a half. They're off this week.
Agreed. All right, 5-0. Talk about the second half of the season.
Well, we got Miami High this week. Traditional rival of ours. We've been playing them, since our school's been open
Forever.
Yeah. So it's that's always going to be big. It's up Curtis Park, so we got to go on the road.
The friendly confines of Curtis Park. Yes.
Last time I went there, I was coaching with you, and they had some interesting lines on the field. One of the end zones was 8 yards long, and the other one was 12. That was different. I'd never seen that before. And the 50 to the 45 on the one side was kind of like a trapezoid, down to about 3 yards, and the one end
we're
is about 7.
Math. Yes.
Yeah. I didn't know what a trapezoid was. I had to look it up. So that one, and then we come back and we have Homestead who's undefeated. So we play arguably one of the toughest schools in our school's history, I would think, just because we kind of went through the first half of the schedule and there's some quality opponents on there, and the second half we're going to play we're going to have 3 district games. We have Homestead High School, and then we'll play a great team in the GMAC, whatever, the GMAC game they give us, because, we should have a good record at that point. So we'll play one of the top teams in Dade County at that point.
What is the key to not looking past an opponent when you have a big game the week after? How do you approach that? Because, Miami High is not on paper a very good team. That's just a fact. Homestead is undefeated. So what do you do to make sure they don't look past an opponent?
We, as coaching staff, we approach it this way: is that we were fundamentally deficient in a bunch of areas on Friday night. Our goal this week is to eliminate those deficiencies. And I said, how do we tell if we eliminate deficiencies? It's got to show up on film when we play Miami High. So it's really about us getting better at the things we need to get better at and not who we're playing. And so I said, when we turn on the film on Saturday morning, our blocking and tackling better be at an elite level, because we have to play an elite schedule. And it wasn't on Friday, and we kind of got lucky in some regards. We got some calls go our way. But,
it's part of the game.
Yeah, football's football. But we found a way to win. But that's the big thing, is we got to see significant improvement in fundamental areas, and it's got to show up on film when we look at it on Saturday. And then right after that, we're going to play Homestead. So, if we can't get up for that game, then, we got to have our heads checked.
One thing about your staff and you is you guys are teachers first, and that never gets lost on your staff. You have 2 deans, for that matter, on your staff. I mean, education is the primary function of this school. And, Coach Mirabal, Coach Lavelle have always said, if you can teach, you can coach, and vice versa. Do you enjoy teaching?
I do. As you remember, the first time I was I was not a physical education teacher. I was a classroom teacher. Yeah. I used to tell every kid I taught typing. I'm the fastest typing football coach in America. I can type like 64, 65 words a minute, and when I get it going at a good clip, and it's one of the things I'm proud of, believe it or not. That's not easy. I started my master's degree in 1989 and finished it last June. So, what's that, like 4 decades there?
Okay, but you
just squeezed it in. So that was one of the things I was probably most proud of that I've accomplished in a while. And I think with our guys, what's best is not only are they teachers first, it's having so many teachers on staff helps us in a lot of different ways. One is they have a great relationship with the kids because they see them outside of football. 2, they are great at disseminating information to our players and making sure our players retain the information we're giving them. And the other part is that having them all here, if something changes like today, like we're going to go practice in the morning, everybody can make it. So there's nothing but pluses in my opinion. I think we have 13 coaches on staff here, as teachers or administrators at Columbus High School.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Something a lot of people may not know about you is you like to read, and you're a history guy. Yeah. Do you see a correlation between studying history and coaching football?
Sun Tzu, Art of War.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's
perfect.
Yeah, that's one of the things you and I have always had in common. I would have been a history major, except my father didn't believe it existed. So, bone of contention in the Dunn family for years, by the way. According to my father, when I went to college, there was 2 majors. There was engineering and business, and I was not going to do engineering, so I became a business major. But I was a history minor. And if it was up to me, I would have been a history teacher. I loved it. If you're going to work at something, you better love it. And it's
We had a technical moment.
We had a blip.
I think we're back.
We had a glitch in the system.
Yeah.
I got to talk to our producer.
Yes, thank God she knows what she's doing, because we clearly do not.
Yeah. The look on your face was priceless. Good thing I kept it rolling.
Of course you did. Sum up in as brief, as few words as possible, because less is more sometimes. What is the coaching philosophy of Dave Dunn?
Outwork and out-prepare your opponents.
Okay.
I think it comes down, and it's a 12-month, 365-day-a-year job. And
you do it well, and you still love it.
Yes, I do. I could not do anything. I'm wired to do this and this only.
So you have no desire to stop coaching anytime soon?
No. Probably the only thing that ever would be like some kind of health issue arose or something like that. I just can't see myself. Certain people are meant to do certain things. I've been blessed because I found my calling at an early age. I was put on this great earth by the big guy upstairs to be a mentor and a coach, and I love every second of it.
And you're absolutely positively in the right place to do it, and it's a real pleasure to have done this with you, and it's a true pleasure to have known you for all these years. And you are who you are, and I'm fortunate to know the real Dave Dunn.
I've been on the show so many times. Eventually, I'm going to be the Ed McMahon to your Johnny Carson. So
yeah,
I will be the sidekick.
We'll make sure you get a royalty check. Okay.
Okay.
But in all seriousness, the head coach of the Columbus Explorers doing an amazing job. High expectations, hard work. We're 5-0. We'll see where it goes from here. Coach Dunn, as always, a pleasure, my friend.
Adelante.
Always. Adelante. All right, Explorer Nation, that's it for this episode. We've got a lot of good guests coming up. I look forward to it. Take care of yourselves. Take it easy. Buenos tiempos, and adelante.